Well, hello again, and welcome everyone to your Trip Sitters Training Overview. We are so excited to have you with us today. My name is Susan Renee. I am our Manager of Client Relations here at Being True to You. I'm also one of our Being True to You certified coaches, as well as an instructor. And I'm joined here today with Sarah Howitt, our certified Being True to You coach and expert trip sitter. And she is also your main instructor for this program. Sarah, if you want to say a quick hello to everyone.
Hi, everyone. I'm currently in Colorado after spending some time in Austin, Texas. And I have also been through the Being True to You program, the coaches training, and I'm really excited to be here with you all today.
And we are excited to have you, Sarah. And yeah, just looking in the chat, we've got people from all over. I see California, Pennsylvania, Los Angeles. I'm outside of LA myself, San Francisco, Austin, ooh, Hawaii, aloha, Colorado, Phoenix, Denver. We've got everywhere covered. So we are so excited to talk to you today about Trip Sitters Training here at Being True to You. And I'm also very excited for you all to get to know Sarah, our instructor, as well. So in our webinar today, we're going to cover all things Trip Sitters Training, including an overview of the program, why this training is so important, and really who this program is best suited for. And we are also going to save plenty of time to answer any and all of the questions that you may have regarding our new Trip Sitters Training program. So to get us started, let me just give you a quick background on Being True to You and how Trip Sitters Training came to be. And also, I want to let you guys know we have Jen Renee here with us behind the scenes. She's in our chat monitoring our questions. So if you do have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. But also, there's this wonderful little Q&A section. So if you want to drop your questions into the Q&A at the end, Sarah and I will be using that to answer your questions. So just a little bit there. But let me first tell you a bit about Being True to You, and then I'm going to hand it over to Sarah to take you through a little more in depth on our Trip Sitters training. But Being True to You was founded by our CEO, Deanne Adamson, back in 2010 after she left her career as a mental health counselor. She started providing aftercare for recovery coaching programs in ibogaine detox centers. And that really grew into providing preparation and integration coaching along with sitting for all kinds of psychedelic and addiction treatment centers. So after 3 years of her providing these services, it was in 2013 that Deanne created our first edition of our certified coach training program. And here we are 11 years later, we are in our fifth edition of our coach training program, and we've trained over 1,000 coaches in that program alone. And through those 11 years, we have had so many requests for a sitters training. So while we have been here at Being True to You behind the scenes, training clinics and doing sitters training for clinics, we haven't yet offered anything to the public until now. So we are so excited about this partnership with you, Sarah. And our sitters training was created and authored by Sarah Howitt. She is our expert trip sitter here with us today. And so with that, Sarah, I'm going to kick it over to you to tell us just a little bit more about yourself, how you got into trip sitting, and really how this training was created. And I'll let you give an overview of what's ahead as well. So take it away, Sarah.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So excited to be sharing all of this with you today. My journey really began back in my early 20s when I went to grad school to be a couples and family therapist. And I made it all the way through to the end of my program. And then right before I would have graduated, my husband said to me, "Let's start a brewery." And so I dropped out of my program and decided to run our brewery full time. And then when we got divorced, I was looking for really my next path because I got rid of the brewery, sold my shares back to him. And I knew that I wanted to help people, but I didn't want to go back and finish my program. I didn't want to go back and be a therapist. And at that time, I was really getting into psychedelics myself with ayahuasca and 5-MeO-DMT. And I started helping a facilitator of 5-MeO-DMT just in holding space and trip sitting. And really fell in love with just the process of sitting, really just being there with someone, holding space for someone's process, and witnessing transformation. And so after some training with that facilitator, I started to pursue this career, this path, beginning with the preparation and integration coach training through Being True to You. And did some mentoring with them, and then also worked on the ketamine pod side, helping with some prep and integration there, while continuing to hold space in various ceremonies, ayahuasca and psilocybin, and just learning everything I could about these different medicines and how they work and how they help people. And after some time, I actually ended up with a job with a company called Psychedelic Passage. They are a network of trip sitters around the country. I was an early hire of theirs, I think like the seventh sitter that they hired. Great individuals. And within 1 year's time, I think I sat in something like 70 plus ceremonies. So I was doing about 2 to 3 a week on average. And so I really got the bulk of my training in that time, with the mentorship of Jimmy and Nick, who own that company. And now I do this on my own. I have my own practice, along with a coaching practice, spiritual mentorship, things like that. And really, this training came up through a client that I had through Psychedelic Passage. And before she even did her session, she said, "So how did you get into this? And how do I do what you do?" And I said, "Well, step number one is you do a journey. That's step number one," because she had never done a journey before. And I actually referred her to Being True to You, and she went through the program. And afterwards, she said, "That changed my life. How do I learn to be a sitter?" And that was really the impetus for getting this training up and going. So it's a group effort, and I'm really excited to be sharing this with you all.
Thank you for that, Sarah. Yeah, what a journey you've had, and I'm so glad that you had that client spark the idea, and now we've collaborated. You've created and authored this trip sitters training for us that you will be the lead instructor on. So, could you then give everyone a little overview of your trip sitters training that you've put together for us?
Yeah. So it's really, I'm considering it like a 3-part training. So it is 3 months. The first section is all about what it means to be a sitter. So your code of conduct, what's the difference between a sitter and a facilitator, and what it really takes to be a great sitter. I think, okay, so yeah, what are we doing? We're just sitting for people. Well, no, not just sitting, and it's not just about physical safety. It's also about spiritual, mental, and emotional safety as well. And so, how do we become the type of people that make great sitters? And that includes shadow work and really pursuing healing with yourself and self-love and becoming an integrated individual. Wisdom is integrated experience, right? So becoming a wise and integrated individual. The second section is all the how-tos, like assessing, helping your clients to assess and understand if this is the right process and the right time for them. All the things to look for in that assessment process, including things like openness. Is the client open to these types of experiences and what they might bring up? And it's like a blueprint, it's a framework for all the different things that might come up along the way. Even the little nuanced things that you may not have thought about. So how to assess and help them, assess their readiness and their capacity for this experience. And then also what to do, of course, during the sitting process. What does that look like? What does holding space actually look like? What do you do? What do you don't do? What you don't do? And then, of course, the follow-up, the post-session and integration phase. And then the third section is things more like ethical considerations, legal considerations, and then also different populations that you may want to work with and different settings that you may find those populations in.
Yeah, that's great, Sarah. Thanks for giving us that overview. And I've gotten to look at the curriculum, and you really have created just such a comprehensive program for us. So we're really excited to get the trainees, through the program and get them all the amazing information that you put together in this course. So with that, we'll dive maybe into some more specifics and what you cover. But I'd be curious to know, and I'm sure everyone here is curious to know too, why does someone even need sitters training?
Yeah, great question. One of my favorite things that happens when people go through these experiences is they say, "Is this normal?" That's always a question. Is this normal? Do people do this? Is this normal? And my answer is always, there is no normal in these experiences. There's no normal for life, right? We're all different. We all have different experiences, different ways that we're built, different things that upset us and excite us. And so, because there's no normal, it takes a certain framework and understanding of how to be as a sitter to be a safe person for that individual. And in order to do that, it takes a lot of honest looking at ourselves and evaluation of ourselves. But it also takes, a certain kind of what I call finesse, right? It's like there's an art to this process. It's not a perfect science. There's no 1 + 1 = 2 because there's no normal. And so you have to be willing to pivot and to think quickly, to think critically, and also to step back and to just let the process unfold. And that's where that finesse comes in, because if we're coming at this process like, oh, every time this happens I do this, you're going to miss the mark, right? And so we have to be able to think really fast on our feet when things do come up. I had a client one time that it was so expressive and so I want to say violent, but nobody got hurt. But it was just, the experience was so expressive and so violent in a way that I thought to myself, this might be the first time I feel ill-equipped to handle this. And because of my training, because I had experiences in working with other people and things like that, I listened to my intuitive knowing, turned off all the music, and I just sat in total silence, and the individual calmed down and everything was fine, right? But these things can happen, and if we're not prepared for them, and if we don't have proper training, we're not going to know how to handle them. And ultimately what that means is, do you trust yourself enough? And the only way to build up trust is to have proper training and experience. And so it all comes back to that foundation of trust. So my hope and my prayer for this experience with folks is that if you decide to become a sitter and all of that, that you understand that trust is the foundation of this work 100%. And we provide that. When we provide that to our clients and they feel safe, they really can transform in magnificent ways.
So beautifully said, Sarah. Thank you for bringing in that example too. I think like hearing a story firsthand, how it showed up really just lands for people. So yeah, a lot of reasons why someone would benefit, and need this training. So I know you and I have talked about a little bit why this space in general needs more integrity in it. I know that's near and dear to your heart as well, Sarah. So could you speak to that a little bit of like, why is integrity needed in the sitting space?
Yeah. When I was first starting out, and when I was really first experimenting with different psychedelics and going to different retreats and sitting with different facilitators, my barometer for whether or not I was safe in a journey was, could I tell through conversation or some other knowing, of the person, could I understand if this person was serving me out of a desire to really help me, or out of a desire to serve themselves in some way through some sort of ego trip, something, right? And not to say that I was making a judgment on that person, but my barometer, my personal barometer is this person safe? And the question I would ask is, are they here for me or are they here for themselves in some way? And there are so many people getting into this space now. And I'm on a lot of different Facebook groups and things, and I just pay attention to chats that people are putting in there. And there's a lot of people who want to jump into this work, but have never done a psychedelic journey themselves. And because there is no normal in this work, and because every journey is so different, it is really imperative that we are being sitters of integrity. And that's going to vary for every person. I'm not saying that you have to do X number of journeys or have X amount of training before you jump into this work. That's not my call to make. But integrity is so important because as these substances become more prevalent in our society, and more people are turning to us for help, it is our duty, not just to them, but to the entire world and to these medicines and the cultures that they come from, to be good stewards of them so that we don't cause more harm than good. And even though we're not held, at least yet, or maybe not in every state, to the same standards that someone like a doctor would be, if one slip up and the whole thing could crumble, right? And we just want to build. My passion is really to build up leaders in this space of integrity, people that say no when they need to say no, and set those boundaries when they need to be set, and people that really care about other people so much that they're willing to say, I'm sorry, I don't think this is the right time, or this isn't going to be safe, or whatever. So that's really why I started this program, because I believe so much in that integrity piece.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sarah. Beautiful answer. Well said. And I agree wholeheartedly, and I know we agree with bringing integrity into the space here, it being true to you as well, which is why we're so eager to get this training out there, because we do need trained sitters. We do. The space needs it. And so I threw two bigger questions to you right out front. Let's take a step back and just talk about a logistical question with training. So could you talk a little bit for our attendees, like how this class is structured and like what a trainee should expect to go through like in the course of a week during the program?
Yeah. So there are 12 modules, and we're also going to do a little opening ceremony, if you will. So call it 13 weeks. 12 modules, and each week you will have access to that module to watch on your own. And then each week we'll also have a call. So the call will be about 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours if we have a lot of discussion that week. But it'll be about 90 minutes. And we will play that module as the first part of that call. So if you're not able to get to it on your own that week or something like that, that's okay. We'll watch it together. And then we'll do a discussion and Q&A. And this is really the discussion and Q&A is really valuable because I do tell a lot of stories that fit into these modules. So to really help you understand why these things are important. Some of them are funny, some of them are serious, the whole spectrum. But we'll do discussion, Q&A, and really I look at that as an opportunity if you have like specific things that you're, maybe with clients or whatnot, if you're already doing some of this work, we can really talk about those during that time as well. And yeah, so that'll be the Q&A. And then also as a part of the week, you'll have homework questions, which are actually tied directly to the modules. And then what I call soul work questions, which are more like self-inquiry. It's like journaling prompts so that you can really start to integrate some of this material as part of your embodiment.
Thank you for that, Sarah. And yes, so with all of that, with the lectures, with attending the lecture discussions, with the coursework and the soul work, we guessed about 3 hours a week time commitment, right? Each week for someone to get through the program. Of course, could be a little bit more if someone wants to attend both lecture discussions, but not required. It's about 3 hours a week as we've calculated it. And we did have a great question come into the chat about the days of the week and when the lectures were going to be. So we have that answer in the chat, but I'll just bring it into the group as well. Your lecture discussions are going to be Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific time and Thursdays at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So I think one thing to note for all of you attendees is that each week, Sarah will be covering one lecture. So you can attend either the Tuesday evening or the Thursday morning session. So whichever one works for you, it's going to be the same material. Again, for you eager beavers out there, if you do want to attend both, that's okay too, but it will be covering the same lecture. And just a note, we will not be recording those. So you do want to be able to attend and make sure those work with your schedule. So Jen Renee dropped those in the chat for us if you want to take a peek at the dates and times. And then I guess the other thing to note here, Sarah, we should maybe talk about requirements for getting their certificate of completion. So I'll just mention that it is required to attend 9 of the 12 live lecture discussions. So while technically there's going to be 24 live lecture discussions, you need to attend 9 of the 12 lectures. So if you do the twice in 1 week, it doesn't count toward double requirements. Okay, so you have to get to 9 of the 12 live lecture discussions to receive your certificate of completion. And you also do need to complete all 12 of the courseworks and all 12 of the soul works as well. So just want to make sure that's clear for everyone for their certificate of completion. So yes, with that, does that feel like that covered it, Sarah, as far as like the structure and requirements and everything? Beautiful. Okay. So with that, I know we've had a lot of questions, and I know you're going to speak to this in the training, but could you maybe just give us a little highlight, Sarah, because it's a question we hear a lot on our client services team. Like, what's the difference between a facilitator and a sitter? I think that's a big question that's on everyone's mind.
Yeah, really great question. So the way that I define the difference between a facilitator and a sitter is a facilitator actually serves the medicine. And so examples would be a shaman, a Shipibo shaman at an ayahuasca ceremony in Peru, or a doctor actually giving the infusion of ketamine at a clinic, right? And so a facilitator actually serves the medicine. What I am teaching and offering here is, as a sitter, that is a wide range of what that can look like in terms of your practice, but you are leaving it 100% up to the client and it depends on the setting, right? If you're like in a ketamine clinic as a sitter, it's going to look different. But like what I do working with private clients is it's 100% on them, what they choose to do. And my job is to ensure safety and harm reduction. So I'm just sitting with them to ensure that they're being safe. And then of course I provide preparation, integration as well. But my primary role is harm reduction.
Yeah, I love that. And again, I think it's a good distinction because as a sitter, we do want to keep ourselves legally safe, right? So there is actually no giving of, no facilitating, right? You're not giving a client a medicine. So I think that's a really important distinction to make. And again, it's just a question we get a lot. And I know you dive into that in the training. So, but it's really important, I think. And again, everyone's practice could look a little bit different and their offering. But I do think that is a big distinction for legal reasons, right? And just making sure you do focus on that harm reduction aspect and safety. Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that then, can you just tell us some reasons, I guess, why someone would then want to be trained as a sitter? And we maybe covered some of this, but I'm going to ask it again because I think it's an important one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a lot of reasons. There's definitely a lot of reasons. A lot of what I cover in this program is a lot of the specifics of what that process looks like from start to finish, from the time that someone contacts you or you're working with a client. Maybe you're like a sound healer and you want to incorporate this into your, list of services, something like that. So you're working with someone, it's going to walk you through how do you assess for readiness and, medications, and how do you help them really self-screen for all of that. But then on top of that, when you're going through this process with them, what happens if somebody sits up suddenly and says, okay, I'm ready to go, and just starts walking out the door, which has happened before. What happens if someone gets violent, and you're sitting with them one-on-one in their home or something like that? What do you do? What happens if you have someone who's got Parkinson's or something like diabetes, and they need, an injection during their journey or something like that? Like, I've had all kinds of things like this come up. And so it just helps you to know what to do ahead of time, during, and afterward, to keep them safe. And also, what happens if something comes up that might be like personally triggering, right, for you? How do you handle that? And what does it look like to walk that line with someone? And really, I mean, at the end of the day, I see myself as just one human being sitting and loving someone else. And I've sat with people who were approaching end of their life and, held their hand as they processed like their death, right? And there are all kinds of things that can come up in these scenarios. People that are re-experiencing deep trauma that's come up during their journey, and perhaps like in the situation with me, I had a woman one time that didn't disclose that any of this had happened to her in our preparation. And so when it came up in the journey, I was very confused, right? Because I had no clue what was going on for her in her journey. And only afterward did she share with me what had happened. And it ended up being, she actually declined integration with me because she decided to work with a therapist. And she said, this is the best thing that could have happened because, she came to me for alcohol addiction, never disclosed that this trauma had happened. And afterwards, she said, this is the best thing that could have happened because now I'm in therapy for this trauma that happened to me so many years ago. And again, this comes back to trust. And I talk about this in depth in this program, is how do we build trust with ourselves so that when things like this happen, and not just with ourselves, but with this process and with these medicines, because when we have these situations come up, my philosophy is that as long as I'm doing my due diligence and doing my best job as a sitter to ensure safety, I do trust that even if something like this happens, it always turns out for the best interest of that person. And I could tell you 100 stories. And if you go through the sitters training, you will hear 100 stories about all of these things that have come up. So yeah, there's an infinite number of reasons, but I think it comes back to feeling steady and secure in yourself so that no matter what happens with the client, that you did your best, that you have the experience and the training to do this with them, and that you've provided them a safe and effective experience, and really given them that space to traverse that territory on their own. So
thank you for that, Sarah. Yeah, and I'm eager for the 100 stories to come in the training. It sounds like you do
so
have
many
a lot of
stories.
so many stories. Yes. And I think you just answered my next question. If you want to add anything to it, but I was going to ask you then, what can a trainee like realistically expect to gain from this program, and going through this program? And what I just heard you saying was like really the knowledge and the confidence and the trust, right? So they can bring integrity into this space and can have that integrity as a sitter. Is there anything else you want to maybe add that someone would gain, from having this training experience with you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to give you a framework for anything that you could think of that would come up. I'm going to give you a framework for. And I'm going to give you a foundation of self-trust through this training so that you feel and know that you're ready to move forward. And also, you understand the immensity of the role that you're stepping into so that you move forward with humility. And I think that it's the both and. I think it's like we want to be confident in our role as a sitter, and we want to remain humble and a student to this process so that we don't overshoot the mark and end up with a lawsuit or something on our hands. So That's my goal, is to instill a lot of confidence and a lot of humility through my storytelling. So that you understand that it is, we do take it seriously, right? Like it is a serious job. And there can be a lightness in your step and a levity when you know that you have the training behind you. You have a certain confidence of like, huh, it's going to be okay. You know, I'm here. I showed up. I'm doing 100% my best. I'm making sure everybody's safe. It's gonna be great. And then if something turns out not so great, you know how to handle it, right? So we're just covering all bases, and it's all about balance, right? We want to find the balance.
100%. And I love that. And I'm glad you expanded on that. So I have one last question for you, and then I think we can kick it off maybe to some Q&A questions, because it looks like we have some already coming in to our Q&A section. But I'm curious. So you just talked about all of these amazing benefits that someone can expect from the training. With that, what would you say it takes for a trainee to actually experience these benefits? So what do they need to do in this training to make sure they get those benefits?
Really, I think just show up with an open heart and an open mind and a student's mindset and a willingness to learn. Um, I took someone through this training a number of months ago, just a private client, and when she started out, she was so confident, you know, oh, I'm so excited to be a sitter. And after a few weeks, she went, oh, yeah, I'm gonna take my time and I'm gonna get experience. And I'm gonna shadow people and I'm gonna really learn, right? And be a student of this process. And again, different paths for everyone, right? It's not saying that that's always the case for everyone, but I do believe and trust and know that you will go through this program feeling more empowered and more patient and more ready to do this work. And more, and again, more, it all always comes back to trust. I'm going to say that word again, but more trusting of yourself and of your capacity as a sitter. And then also, you know, all the, like I'm seeing in the chat here, like some of the legal things as well, right? Like that, we're going to cover that too in depth. So, um, yeah, just working out those things so that you're not, when you're sitting with clients, you're not rummaging through your mind with those types of questions because you'll already know. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Answered it beautifully. Thank you for that. Yeah. And if there are other questions, any of our attendees, if you want to drop some questions into the Q&A, we'll make sure we get to that. So as you think of your questions and get them there, and I'll start bringing them in for Sarah and myself, I do want to let you guys know that this training does have limited enrollment, and we are already half full. And we are expecting to fill up and close enrollment for this training. So right now, enrollment is technically open until April 30th or until training is full. So if you are interested, make sure you let us know so you can secure your spot. And drum roll, I actually have a discount code for you all who are interested. So if anyone does have to drop off before we get to questions and get into the Q&A, I did want to just give you all the discount code for sitters training, and I will have Jen Renee drop it into the chat for you. So Jen, if you want to drop in our website where they can purchase sitters training along with the discount, we are offering a $150 off discount code right now with code SITTERS150. So again, I'll have Jen drop that in the chat for you all, and that is valid for the next 72 hours. So if you are interested, that $150 off code does bring the course price down to $1,650 for you. So it is an excellent offer, and we do hope to see you use that and hope to see you get into the course before it's filled up. So thank you, Jen, for dropping that in the chat for us. And now, Sarah, maybe we can take some questions from the Q&A if you are ready for that. So our first question is from Andrew, and Andrew asks us, I know there are restrictions on advertising. So how do we find clients to build our business? Is this covered in the training?
Yeah, great question. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on how to find clients because that's more of a business type training question. But I will get into the legal considerations of that in the last module. And, you know, for a lot of people and people in this circle, there's obviously different companies that you can get signed up with, retreat companies that are always looking for sitters at retreats. And so there's different ways that you can get plugged in and build your list of clients, really. I work with 4 different retreat companies. So I travel quite a bit and I'm always working with different clients that way. And so, yeah, I mean, there's lots of different ways to build up clients. I'm not going to get too much into detail on that, though, but I'm always happy to have that discussion on one of the Q&A calls also and talk about that more. But as far as like in the training itself, we're not really covering that too much, except for in that legal module.
Wonderful. So it sounds like while not maybe specifically covered in training, that topic might be coming into discussions of the lectures.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
beautiful. Thank you for that, Sarah. So our next question is, how do you know, I'm guessing when sitting, right, with the client, that the medicine being taken by the client is clean, and safe?
Yeah. So with things like mushrooms, I don't typically worry about that too much with mushrooms specifically. With other medicines like MDMA or LSD, things like that, if the client wants to source and is able to source those medicines, I have them get a testing kit and have resources for them to get a testing kit. But I do have them test it themselves. I basically I'm hands off with touching the medicine when it comes to one-on-one client work if it's not through a retreat company. And that's just for my own legal protection.
100%. Thank you for that answer, Sarah. So our next question comes from Jessica. And Jessica asks us, I would love to know if you will work through the do's and don'ts for medicine in general, or if it will be specific to different medicines. And could you share a brief overview of the different medicines you will cover on a more specific level?
Yeah, great question. So this training is very general. A lot of my work with clients, the majority of my work has been with psilocybin. So a lot of what I talk about is it definitely walks a line between like I'm more general in the training, but I'll get into some specifics throughout the training as well. But again, during the Q&A portion, like the discussion, we can absolutely talk about that in depth. But it's just not covered in the written module portion because this training is meant to be more of like a generalized, you can apply this to any service that you want to offer specifically.
Beautiful, Sarah. So it sounds like, just for clarification there, in the training, everything's pretty general. It's just medicine in general, sitting in general. But probably again, in the lecture discussions, there might be more specifics coming in to different medicines, but like you don't have a whole module that breaks down, psilocybin, MDMA, LSD, right? All of the different medicines and differences in sitting.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Okay, our next question comes from Andrew. And so everyone knows we are answering questions from the Q&A. So if there is a question you have dropped into the chat, I will review that at the end, but do feel free to move it over into the Q&A to make sure we capture it for you. So our next question comes from Andrew. Are there companies that hire sitters, or is this usually done as an individual business?
Yeah, I mean, so as it's becoming more and more legal or decriminalized in places like Colorado, sitting is going to become more legal in terms of like designations, you know. But there are companies. Psychedelic Passage was great. I know there are other companies besides them that are doing this work and hiring sitters. There's also places like Heal.me, which I know from talking to some folks there that they're looking to bring more people onto their platform that are offering psychedelic services. So there are ways to kind of put your name in a catalog like that so that people can find you in their area. And then also, Facebook groups and getting involved in your associations in your area, all of those things are really helpful as well.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, I think in this psychedelic renaissance that we're in, there's going to be growth in this. And I do believe people will be looking for people who do know sitting and who have been trained in it as well, to come on, to their retreat centers, to their clinics, all of that. So great answer. So our next question comes from Aaron. And Aaron asks, is there an affiliate link specific to this course? I'm already enrolled and would like to share on my affiliate channels. I can take that one for us, Sarah, if you'd like. So Aaron, that's a great question. At the moment, we don't have an affiliate link specific to this course. What we usually do is after you receive your certificate, so after we've gone through the training is when we open up the affiliate program. If you want to talk more about that, Aaron, you can go ahead and email us at coaching@beingtruetoyou.com. We can maybe see if we can help you out, but usually that would be post training, post receiving your certificate, that we would start the affiliate program. So because this is our first run, we don't have that up yet. But we do have our marketing director here with us on the call. And so I will take that behind the scenes with her and see what we can do for you, Aaron. Okay. So with that, our next question, Sarah, is will there be a prerequisite in order to take this program? I can probably answer that one for us too. There is not. There are no prerequisites for this program. We can definitely talk to you if you want to call us. I know Jen had dropped in on the main line. Our direct line is 833-379-0070. And we can talk to you about if it's a good fit for you to come in, and get this trip sitters training. However, there are no technical prerequisites in order to attend. Would you say anything, Sarah, as far as like maybe not a prerequisite, but something you would want in a trainee who's coming in?
I mean, truthfully, I think that anybody would be a good fit for this type of program. You're going to learn a lot. And I'm also going to give some resources and options for like continuing education, like depending on what you're interested in. I always recommend the Being True to You coaches training, always. But maybe you really want to get into trauma work. Maybe you really want to get into working with parts work, or you want to get into addiction specific stuff or veteran specific stuff. So I will give some options for continuing education, and not options. It's not like you should do this or you should do this. I'm just going to give like a list of, hey, if you're curious about this, maybe try this out, or maybe search over here. But generally speaking, I mean, I think anybody can be a sitter. I've got a guy right now. He was a client of mine. He was a former firefighter and a first responder, and he has no other clinical training, but he's going to be a great sitter because he understands the people that he's going to be sitting for. So, he's also in AA and stuff like that. So he's got the heart for it. He's got the foundation for it. No other clinical training though, so, and we're getting, he's getting hooked up with a therapist in his area so she can do all the prep and integration work with the client. He's really just sitting for them. So I think anybody would be a great fit. If your heart's open to it and in the right place for it, then yeah, come on in.
Love that. No, I'm glad you added that in for us, Sarah. Thank you. So our next question comes from Charlotte, and Charlotte asks, how do entities such as Psychedelic Passage view your training?
Great question. I actually haven't run it by them yet, but it's on my list of things to do. But a lot of the things in there, like for instance, when I work with people one-on-one, if they're not able to be in their home for some reason, they've got kids or something like that, or they've got a roommate or they live in an apartment, I always have them get an Airbnb. And I put the considerations in there. What do you look for in an Airbnb? What do you require? And that came directly from Jimmy at Psychedelic Passage. So there's a lot that I've learned that I've put into this training that was, I give a lot of gratitude for them for that year and a half with them. I learned so much in that time. So, but I'll let you know when when I run it by them. I'm sure they're going to say it's great.
I'm sure they will, especially if you learn so much from them. They'll probably be like, "Oh, this is all great. This is the stuff we were teaching, right?"
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Um, Great. So, next question comes from Lauren, and Lauren asks us, "Will there be discussions around microdosing protocols?"
Yeah, great question. So I personally, I do speak with clients about microdosing, but because I'm acting as a sitter, I do not tell them what they should be doing. So we can certainly talk about protocols and how to talk with clients about those protocols. But I don't give it again, it's not in the written module, but if it comes up in the Q&A discussion during the week, absolutely, let's talk about it. We can talk about what you might want to give to your clients. Maybe you give them a little packet that you've written about what microdosing is and the different types of protocols and why they might choose different protocols. I think with a lot of this work, there's a lot of opportunity to kind of like infuse your passion into these people that you're working with. So maybe you're really passionate and excited about like flow states, and you want to work with clients and create, developing greater capacity for creativity. Well, maybe you develop a little microdosing packet on microdosing for creativity, right? So I don't have it again because this is a more generalized training. I don't cover specifically microdosing, but happy to discuss it on the Q&A calls.
Yeah, thank you for that, Sarah. And I think it'd be important to note again here, as a sitter, we are not a facilitator, right? We are not giving medicine, which means we are also not recommending any dosage, right? However, it sounds like we can educate clients, right? We can say, like, here is a packet of information on microdosing, and you can educate yourself and make your own well-informed decision. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I mean, all even with dosages, when we're doing large dose journeys, I do not tell the client what dosage they should take. I work with them to figure out what the dosage is that they want to take. And if I think they're going too high because I'm acting in harm reduction capacity, I will tell them I think that's too high. But I don't tell them, oh, you should definitely start here and this no, that's on them to decide. So I only, like you said, I provide education. I provide a lot of education in the form of, both verbal and written links and podcasts and all kinds of things, but I don't decide for them. So yeah.
Yeah, beautifully said. And again, I think it's important to note too, as sitters, right? We are not facilitators and we're not taking on any liability. We're not even really recommending that anyone do the medicine. They have already decided they want to do it, and we are there to keep them safe, right? Harm reduction capacity. So, and I know you're going to go in depth in that on the training. So, so excited for that. Okay, our next question is, will there be a possibility for experiential training?
Yes, actually. So this is going to be outside of being true to you. But we will, in our first or second call, we'll discuss as a group basically what we want to do in terms of like retreat options. We're thinking about putting together some sort of retreat, like a weekend retreat where everybody can come, and we'll set up some sort of experiential opportunity for everyone. But we'll discuss that more in detail when we get into the program.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, any experiential training or offers or things put together will be outside of being true to you. And also to note there, they will not be covered in the cost of this program. So, anything decided upon will be an additional cost and not included. So there is no experiential training directly included in this Trip Sitters training course. Just for clarity. Yeah,
Yeah, thank
thank
you.
you. Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So next question is, if we don't do this current training, when would the next training be? That is a great question, Andrew. So I'll speak to that quickly. We definitely want to bring Sarah back really soon to do another run of this course. We have not set an exact date yet, but we are hoping to maybe this fall, maybe, early winter, kick off a second cohort. So dates are to be determined, but we are hoping it will be in fall timeline. So I don't know if you have anything to add there, Sarah. I think that one's pretty straightforward. Good. Okay. All right, let's see. we have so many questions. You guys are asking such great questions. Thank you so much. And so let's see if we already did that one. Another question, can you speak to when a client should be referred to someone with counseling experience or a designation or license? I
Yeah.
assume the screening would help determine that.
Yeah. We'll definitely get into a lot of examples of why you would want to refer someone out. I talk a lot about how one of the I don't know what the right word is. When we're talking about sitters of integrity, one of the pieces of being in integrity is to not work with someone that's outside of your capacity as a sitter. And so when you're talking to your client, perhaps on that first initial call, maybe they bring up something like, I don't know, maybe they're addicted to fentanyl, right? And you went, oh, wow, that's a pretty extreme one. I don't know if I have the capacity, to sit with you in that. And I have had some clients like that. Well, how do we get a team around them that do have the experience to help them detox appropriately and get them into a place where they are safe and without question are going to be safe to do an experience like this. So we do talk a lot, or I do talk a lot about that. And I will give a lot of examples of, again, because there's no normal, it's really like, I remember when I was in grad school for counseling, they said the answer to almost every question is that depends. And so it really depends, and it's going to depend on you, and it's going to depend on the client, and it's going to depend on the very specific, nuanced um, uh, issues within what they're dealing with. And so one of the things that I do talk about a lot in this program is asking a lot of questions. So if you have any question at all in your mind, just keep asking more questions until you can help them make an informed decision. And also saying no if you have any question or concern whatsoever about their readiness or their ability to, for you to work with them effectively. Doesn't mean that we have to have experienced everything that the client is going through, right? Like I haven't experienced having stage 4 cancer, but I've sat with people that have. And so it always comes back to depends. It depends on what's going on with them. But yeah, we will talk about referring out and also your potentially legal um, um, obligation to refer them out should something like that come up. So yeah, we'll cover all of that.
Yeah, great, Sarah. Great response there. Thank you for that. So we had one question come in that I can't believe we haven't spoken about. I think Jen might have dropped it in the chat for us, but the question was, when does training start? Like here we are 53 minutes in and we haven't even said when training starts. We maybe mentioned it, but officially, let's let them know. Training kicks off May 1st with opening up your lecture materials in your online course room. From there, Sarah is hosting 2 different orientations. You can go to both or one of them, and those will be on May 2nd and May 3rd. So orientation is really going to be intention setting, and maybe Sarah, you can speak to orientation, but then lectures, so your actual lectures and lecture discussions will start on Tuesday, May 7th. So that's the timing. And yeah, anything else you wanted to add there, Sarah, for that?
No, I'll just say that yes, the orientation is going to be intention setting because I believe that everything, if you've done any sort of ceremony yourself, any sort of psychedelic journey yourself, intention setting is such a huge part of the journey. And so we're going to start our little our 12-week ceremony together. We're going to start with intention setting as well. So we're going to mimic the ceremonial or the process of a session in our training. And so we'll start that with intention setting, which I'm excited about. Little opening ceremony.
Yeah, no, it's going to be wonderful. I'm eager to be there with you for that. So yeah, we do have about 5 minutes left and we have a few more questions that we will get through. I just want to again remind everyone, and Jen, if you can maybe drop it in the chat again, our link to enroll and our $150 off promo code that we have for you, Sitters 150, that you can get $150 off the course for the next 72 hours. And again, if you are interested, Even if you're on the fence, give us a call, talk to us, let us know. We'd be happy to help you. But ultimately, again, we are seeing enrollment to be selling out. So we want to get you in before the course is closed and it is full, because then you will have to wait until fall to join us. So if you want in, get your discount code. And again, we'll finish up with questions now, but thank you, Jen, for putting that in the chat for us. So our next question, Sarah, is from Charlotte. And Charlotte asks, some states, I think, have established guidelines for sitters. That is a question.
Oh, yeah. There, like I'm in Colorado now. There are guidelines, and it's ever evolving, right? The legal landscape is ever evolving. I actually sat in on a panel from Vicente Law, which is the law firm behind the decriminalization movement here in Colorado. And I'm actually hoping to get them on our legal Q&A module calls that week. So the final call, hoping to have them come in as the guests that week, so you can talk to them directly. But yeah, it's ever evolving, ever changing. In some states you need to be licensed, in some states you don't. The cool thing about sitters training, though, is that if you follow some of the guidelines that I'm going to go over, and you're acting simply in a harm reduction capacity, you don't have to, you don't have to be licensed or have any sort of other designation. So we are going to cover all that more in depth, but I really see this as an opportunity for anyone in any role, whether you're working for a clinic, a retreat, or on your own, to be able to do this work legally and safely.
Yep, beautiful. Thank you for that response, Sarah. And so let's see here. Our next question comes from Jessica. Do you cover how and when to interrupt someone's journey?
Yeah, this is a great question. I could talk about this one forever. There's a great quote that says, "A good artist doesn't know what to add, a good artist knows what to take away." And I really see the role as a sitter. Um, I'm basically hands off unless that person asks for my help. And there are very few instances where I've had to interrupt. Very, very few out of 200 plus sessions at this point. So we will get into when you should interrupt, but in general, you probably don't need to if you're properly trained.
Great response. Thank you for that. So our next question comes from Charlotte. How many people are going to be in each cohort? You want to answer that one or you want me to? Because I know this answer.
Well, we've got 40 seats in each cohort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, so if that's split between two calls, I mean, I would guess roughly half in each call. I could be give or take, right?
Yeah, so yeah, we do have Charlotte. We're gonna have 40 seats open. If we need to, we might add in a couple more. We'll see how hungry people are, but we are at this moment capping it at 40. And because we are having like multiple offers for lecture discussions, we probably will see about half and half. So class sizes during the week will maybe be up to 40, but probably more like 20, 25 each night. So let's see. Next question. I work on the 2nd and 3rd of May. What times are the intention setting orientations? Let me see. I can get that for us.
Okay.
Our orientations are going to be, let's see, Thursday, which is May 2nd at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Okay. And then Friday, May 3rd, it's going to be at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So that takes care of that for you, Terry. And let's see. Next question. Our next question, you said the certificate is not accredited, but will it be generally accepted by all retreat centers or other organizations? That's a good question.
Yeah. You know, my guess, I mean, obviously I can't speak for all these different retreat centers and organizations, but my guess would be that especially as more and more people want to get into this space. These retreat centers are going to be looking for training from companies that they trust. And Being True to You is an incredible, trusted organization. And so, yeah, I can't speak with them specifically, with those retreat companies and what they're going to be looking for. But as more and more people get into this line of work, they are going to be looking for people who are trained by trusted organizations.
Absolutely agree. Thank you for that, Sarah. And Terry just asked about the discount code. I dropped it back in the chat for you there, Terry. So you have it. It is sitters with an S at the end, 150 for you. Last question that it looks like we have, which is perfect timing because we're at the top of the hour. Will you discuss preparation for the experience and integration after the experience during this training?
Yeah, I am going to discuss preparation and integration with the caveat that if you're not a trained preparation and integration guide, you should not be the one providing that work. So, unless you are a licensed therapist or a psychologist or a coach that has been certified through a company like Being True to You, I do go over how to do preparation and integration with the caveat that unless you are trained, you should not be the one providing, and how to partner with someone who can provide that work for your clients. So you have a team of people that do this work. And then if you're not the one providing preparation and integration, what questions and what things do you need to know as the sitter going into the journey with them? So you have some information as to what they might be moving through. So we'll talk about all that in detail.
Beautiful. And that was officially the last question in our Q&A, Sarah. So again, look at that. We stuck to the hour. Well, we're 2 minutes over, but almost we stuck to the hour. So well done. And great questions, everyone. We're so grateful for your questions. We're so excited for the sitters training and excited to see you all in the training. Really, this is our first run. Again, we are expecting it to fill out because demand has been high. So if you are interested, do make sure you go save your spot, enroll. We do offer payment plans. So do not let finances be any issue. Sarah and I are really eager to see you all in the training. So with that, Sarah, thank you so much for being here with us today. We really
Yeah.
appreciate your time.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Susan, for facilitating. I'm so excited. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking forward to it myself. So thank you all again. We are excited to see you in the training program, and I guess we'll see you there. So until next time. Bye.